Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Breakthrough Blueprint, where we talk to entrepreneurs about how they became successful today. And I have with me my amazing friend, Pat, and I'll hand it over to him to introduce himself.
Thank you so much, Mel. It's a pleasure to be here. Haven't done a podcast in a long time, so I was very honored by the opportunity to do it with you. My name is Patrick Natili. I'm here in Mexico City at the moment. Originally from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, but pretty much world traveler these days. Doing a lot in Mexico and preparing for a big week here for Zonomaco. So excited to start it off with you here and looking forward to jumping in. So,
Amazing. Well, it's awesome to see what you've been doing over the years because we originally met in Medellin a few years ago and we've just sort of stayed in touch. But what have you been up to lately?
yeah. So I think when we met, it was about 3 years ago. I think it was November, October of 2022. At that time, I was working with this author, Keith Ferrazzi, doing a variety of stuff as his chief of staff, helping publish. We were consulting with the Fortune 500. I took a little bit of a pivot since then. So for the last 3 years now, I've been in a similar chief of staff position as well for this entrepreneur, Wei Xing Chen. He is the founder of DD, angel investor, and a lot of different Chinese tech companies and cryptocurrencies and things like that. And so I've had a very interesting, diverse amount of experience with him throughout that career. As of now, in the last year or so, I've been doing a lot of focus on political relations here in Mexico. I've been spending a lot of time in Cabo, getting ready to build sort of this futuristic community and culture out there. Been a time, getting familiar with local politicians and doing a lot of diplomacy work and getting familiar with like land and laws and politics and everything that goes into that. So these days I do a lot of relations work, do a lot of communications. We have a few different brands underneath our umbrella, do copywriting for that. And then, I'm sort of I have a background in psychology. That's where I was originally sort of coming from with my background. So I sort of have this ad hoc psychologist, feng shui manager piece to my role these days. So I'm a little bit all over the place, but a lot of stuff going on in real estate and a lot of stuff going on in diplomacy at the moment.
That is so awesome. Like, your job sounds so cool. It looks like you're always traveling. You're at Burning Man. You're just meeting with tons of people. It looks like you're living the dream. How did you get this job?
Yeah. So I originally, I guess to take a step back, I originally got my first role as a chief of staff with this very interesting and eclectic, powerful author because I went to grad school for something called organizational psychology, which is all about like groups of people and teams and personality types and how do people get together and make decisions and how's that like influenced when you have multiple people and scale and stuff like that. And I had met a guy who was going to do an ayahuasca ceremony in Tulum and was just going boating every weekend. And my friend who did ayahuasca brought this group back with him that he had done the journey with. And I was finishing up grad school at that time. Was very passionate, very excited about the stuff that I was studying. I was talking to this guy, Austin Mao, at the time. And he was like, hey, I think I know somebody who does what you want to do. As this guy, Keith Ferrazzi. So said he was going to make the introduction, told me to give him my resume. I was finishing up grad school. I had 2 months left. Never heard back from him. Was interviewing with Gartner. And that was actually the only job interview I had going for myself. I had like $250 left in my bank account. And basically didn't hear from this guy for like 5 or 6 months. Didn't even think about reaching out to him. I just started a serving job in Fort Lauderdale just to try to bring in some money. And on the day that I heard back from Gartner, they basically called me to inform me that I was not going to get the job. And 30 minutes after that call, I received a text from Austin Miles saying, hey, Keith saw your resume and wants to talk to you. Can you talk in like 30 minutes? So I put on a suit, fucking shaved my face real quick and took this call with Keith. And we were super similar. We had similar like family backgrounds. He's Italian as well. And we had a really good synergy. So he ended up giving me this part-time role to build this award for Tony Hsieh, who was this founder of Zappos, who had just recently passed away really tragically and had done a lot of really cool things in like the human resource space and company culture and motivation and compensation plans and things like that. My first part of the job with Keith was building out this award. We featured it at TED and Masters of Scale and all these things. But throughout that process of building the award, Keith wanted me to basically promote and become his chief of staff and take on a variety of different roles in the organization. So I needed to find somebody to help me be an executive director of the Tony Hsieh Award. Got introduced to this woman, Audrey, who has become a dear sister of mine over the years. And she and I basically went forward with that award. Fast forward, working with these kind of entrepreneurs is kind of crazy. It's a very chaotic environment. It takes a certain personality type. And we'd had a successful award run in the first cycle. And she decided she was going to, she had a lot of other projects that she was working on. So she moved forward. We always kept in touch as close friends. About a year and a half later, she reached out to me. It was like, hey, I think I might have a interesting opportunity for you. I'm coming to Miami for Formula One, and I would love to introduce you to somebody. Went to Formula One. I end up meeting this guy. I'm at this table, and like this super quiet guy sitting at the table. Like everyone else is like flexing the bottles and, hanging out with the girls and stuff. And this guy's like really quiet. And I had no clue that this was the person that she wanted to introduce me to. But lo and behold, she makes an introduction. At the time, I didn't even think he spoke English. He was very, very introverted and we barely even conversed. And so we basically partied together all weekend, never really talked that much, but Audrey had basically essentially started dating Wei Sheng and was looking for someone with my kind of background to help support them with the different projects and, personal assistant stuff and things like that. Ended up not taking the role. I had a really good relationship with Keith. I was making good money. It was a little bit risky because I didn't get to feel out Wei Sheng as much. I didn't really know him that well. And fast forward to the same trip that I met you at, 4 months later, Audrey and Wei Sheng happened to be coming through Colombia at the same time that I was living there. And it just ironically aligned. So we ended up spending like a week and a half together in Colombia. Went to Cartagena, Medellin, had a lot of fun, boated, yacht days, things like that. And at that point in time, Wei Sheng and I got to speak, and I realized he does speak English. So we chatted a lot. I told him about my background in consulting, told him about my history with psychology. And then he didn't offer me the job then, but then a couple months later, had a very powerful experience in Cabo and became very just in love with Cabo and had this big vision that he wanted to build his future there because he, has kind of moved away from China, has been international and doesn't really have a home base. And so hit me up in February of 2023. Said, hey, I have a really cool idea. I have a really big vision and a really big impact that I want to create for humanity. And I think you're the right person to help me make that. So I flew to Cabo, spent 2 weeks. As soon as I got there, we took a helicopter ride looking at land the first day. I hadn't even taken the job yet. He already wanted to just get right into it. And at the end of that trip, I ended up taking the job offer. So now it's been 3 years and like a million other things have germinated since then. So yeah, it's the long-winded response of how we met him.
The path that you've been on is like absolutely inspiring, and just seeing you, following you. I know we've tried to meet up. It's like we're two ships crossing in the night, but that's so amazing. So you're spending a lot of time in Cabo because now you guys are developing land, buying real estate?
Yes. So we haven't purchased yet, but there's a very long-term vision there. We're shifting as society and as culture, right? I think we're moving away from these old sort of infrastructures of, large scale commercialization, big government, not really having so much influence and say on the things that impact us, financially, governance wise, educationally. And we essentially are trying to create, I wouldn't say a sovereign nation or a sovereign state, but we want to long-term invest in, a pretty big piece of land and build a community and be able to influence politics and create the kind of space and the kind of world that we personally want to live in, but that we think a lot of other people are also yearning for. So there's a lot of cultural influence from the work you've seen in Burning Man, for anyone who's attended Burning Man, to witness how people interact and treat each other and operate and govern themselves in that environment for 1 week. It really makes you question and reconsider the world that we live in this default setting, right? And what could be if we were to redesign certain structures. So we have this very long-term vision of sort of this futuristic, smart, sustainable, eco-friendly, semi-permanent environment in Cabo. But this is actually just ground zero for something more international at scale that we want to create, which is to create essentially 56 of these special economic locations across the world. And the idea is that these can be educational environments through lifestyle And when you have ASI and agents and robotics coming into play, and you're living in this beautiful Baja Sur life, and you can be on the beach, and one day this little mushroom robot comes up to you to give you a cocktail or something, and you can talk to this robot about the theory of, quantum mechanics or something. We're moving into a different future very fast. And with robotics and AI and all the emerging technologies coming out, and crypto and decentralized networks and things like that, we're trying to build a very futuristic state for humanity and for civilization. So still very early in infancy, just looking at land now, getting familiar with politicians, learning about law and how to influence law and build in Mexico, and essentially bridge China, Mexico, and United States relations. There's a lot of opportunity for synergy there. And I think there's just a lot of lack of communication and lack of understanding from, each side at the macro level. And so we're building a lot of bridges between the three countries and ultimately globally.
The way government and the world has worked, like maybe it worked for a certain period of time, but those systems are failing us. And we're seeing that all over the world right now. And I know other people that are trying these experimental communities and trying different like self governance all over the world. So it's cool to see that you're involved with that. And you get to
Yeah.
do it in Cabo, one of the most beautiful places in the whole world.
It's a very blessed daily life for me. I couldn't imagine a better place to be trying to make this happen, especially coming from South Florida. There's something very similar about Baja and South Florida, just even geographically. If you look at where they are in the world on the maps, it's it's a blessed opportunity.
Can you talk a little bit more about your trip to Italy?
Yeah. So was actually in Romania right before that. We had hosted a Halloween party, but ultimately part of a bigger conference that we host called Protocols, which is all about converging some of the most influential people in politics, academia, commerce, nonprofits, and artists across the world, essentially to converge on what are the most important protocols that we should be developing for society in these different structure in these different industries and verticals, and ultimately to influence technology, right, and governance and things like that. And so we hosted this one this year in Romania at Dracula's Castle, being the big draw. And we had this amazing Halloween party at Dracula's Castle, and the conference itself was incredible. Had people from all around the world across all these different industries, very, very powerful people, but with a similar energy of Burning Man, not really trying to speak too much about, self promotion, not really trying to be so commercial and sell yourself. It's more about generating relationships through fun, because the idea is that fun is the way, right? If you can have fun with people, you can build trust with people, you can become coherent with other people, experience that same similar vibration with people. After the conference, later down the line, you have trust, you have relationship, you have familiarity. Then there's a great space to discover the synergy and the overlaps. Had the protocols conference in Romania, and then we had a couple meetings that we needed to do in Rome. My background and my ethnicity, my nationality is Italian. I've always been curious about my family history. My father is the Italian side of my family and passed away when I was 10, and his American side of the family is a little bit disjointed. So I never really had an opportunity to meet my family and learn a lot about my family history. I don't really know a lot about it. So I went to Rome for what was going to be 2 business days, found a friend or found a cousin on Facebook. And it was the only person I knew with my last name on Facebook that wasn't like part of the immediate family that I was aware of. Messaged him and said, "Hey, I'm coming to Rome. I don't know where you are in Italy, but I will travel anywhere to come meet you. Like, I just would love to meet you." And then he's like, "Oh, I live in Rome, but when are you going to be here?" So I ended up meeting my cousin in Rome, and his father and his wife, and then the wife is a sister. Turns out these are the last remaining people in this bloodline that live in Italy. Ultimately, there was 2 brothers who were like the patriarchs of my family lineage. One brother, they both went to the United States and built businesses and things like that. One brother stayed in the United States. The other brother went back to Italy, took his money and invested in Amatrice and the Abruzzo area. The long story short, this family that I met is the last of that Italian lineage, and basically had all of the history and all the facts about my family, and took me to Amatrice. They live in Rome, and it turned out that my family's been back and forth between Rome and Amatrice for over 200 years. And it was a very powerful family in the farming industry and agricultural industry. And these really simple mountain people that come from a very small town. And Amatrice was actually destroyed by an earthquake in 2016. It's a very like well-known historical event that happened because it was like super big earthquake. A lot of my family's infrastructure and the house that had been built since like 1800s kind of got messed up. Got to learn about that. They're working on a new villa there. And now I have this connection to this family that I will continue to have for ultimately perpetuity. And when I have more resources, I'm sure I'll spend more time in Italy and yeah, invest in my family's, projects that they've got going on in Amatrice just to sustain the history of that lineage. And I basically discovered this family history that I've been curious about for my whole life. So it turned into one of the most powerful and important trips of my entire life.
That's incredible. And just, following you and seeing your adventures and talking to you now, like there are so many synchronicities and like divine timing and like just these moments that I'm so happy for you that you got to experience because I feel the same way. I didn't have quite the same experience, but going back to Korea for this time, the first time last year in 14 years, but it was the first time I had gone to Busan, which is part of my family is from Busan, and my great grandma and my grandma used to have these stores at a very famous open air market that's still there today. So it's just like when you can reconnect with your history, like coming from immigrant families, and it just like I'm sure you felt the same way. It like helps you understand your identity, where you come from. Because like at least I felt growing up that I was always living in between two identities and two cultures. Sometimes I never felt American enough, sometimes I never felt Korean enough. So I think it's very important that people learn if they can where they came from.
Yeah, that's fundamental. Understanding your genetic, understanding your cultural history, so much of who you are is pre-established from that, and to only know your story and not know the story of all those people that compose the genes that, your body is made of, is a blind spot. And so I was able to uncover a lot of that and meeting my cousins who I have no social history with, and they don't have nearly a similar social upbringing as me, to then see the similarities that we still share from, our ancestors and the history of our lineage is really eye opening. It's a really beautiful, beautiful experience. So it changed me forever.
Love that. That is amazing. And so just to change gears a little bit, then I know you mentioned events that you guys have done in the past. Like what events are you organizing this year?
Yeah. So one of the I guess symbols or projects underneath our umbrella is this very popular art car at called Longfeng. So we just debuted in 2024, and it sort of has captured the community by storm. It's a very meaningful car. It's all about building community, bridging the East and the West. Introducing some of these ancient Eastern philosophies and metaphysics and ideologies and symbolism to the West, while also, featuring a lot of music that's popular in the West, like, electronic music and different artists and different dancers and fire performers and contortionists. The ethos of the car is actually designed to be, the car itself is a contortionist in its own way. It's a performing vehicle. And so we built this in 2024. And, originally we're featuring at Burning Man. Last year we featured it at Coachella. It was in the hangar for the whole weekend at Coachella. And, like 15,000 people come through and experience it, which was an honor and a gift. Then we had it at Art Basel this year at Toe Jam Backlot for 3 days. Had Gordo and all kinds of big artists, Francis Mercier, play on it, and have more to come with Longfeng. So probably, hopefully, going to be back at Coachella this year. This month, actually in February, we're going to be throwing a Chinese New Year party at Framework's new venue. I forget the name of the venue, but they just opened up. It's in Los Angeles. So we have that one coming up very soon. Burning Man, of course, and more to come. For protocols, we're actually wanting to do something pretty cool. I want to do something in Rome and Paris this year as well. Do like a multi-satellite experience for the people who attend. And, it's all about like culture and fun and art and beauty and truth. And We want to just sort of activate in different locations each year. So there's so much history in Rome, so much history in Paris, so much art, so much beauty to share. And we're starting to configure and design that experience as well. But TBD when that will be coming. So we have some stuff going on for Longfang and our Burning Man community, our art community, and then we have some stuff going on with protocols right now for more of that, more geared towards like academia and politicians and that sort of community. But yeah, more to come for both of those initiatives. And I'm sure there's always something manifesting that isn't planned now, and out of nowhere it comes up and bubbles up, and then next thing you know, a miracle is born. So we're super excited for those two avenues and the communities that are building around those two energy pools right now.
Incredible. I love that. That's so awesome. And we'll have to discuss how we can collaborate because I feel like now talking to you and hearing everything that you're working on, there's so many things that I can think of that are they're in my head right now. But so what are you then most excited for out of all the things that you're working on right now?
Yeah, it's an interesting moment for me in my career and in my identity because I had this history of interest in psychology and philosophy. I've pretty much known that I was going to study psychology since I was like 16 years old after I took AP Psych. And that's sort of always been my true love and skill set is understanding human nature, understanding human development. Obviously, I have a very philosophical side. So there's a lot about like spirituality and metaphysics and the nature of the universe and things like that. And when I graduated grad school, I was thrusted into this corporate and business and project oriented types of roles and operations and relationship management and things like that. And for the last 5 years, I've been in this very fast paced chief of staff type of position. But as I have more exposure and more types of opportunities have come into my career, I'm realizing that psychology background, that human centric focus, that desire to be an educator. Like I originally planned to be a professor and do research and get my PhD. That was part of my initial pathway and my dream in my mind. I'm realizing that's still at the core of my identity is education, human development, helping other people sort of discover their strengths and helping catalyze them and teach them these different methodologies. And, I've gotten more into these ancient Chinese sort of philosophies in the last 3 years, have come to understand sort of the principles of like feng shui and Bazi, which is like astrology, and how to apply these truths and these different philosophies to your own life and to cultivate your own chi and to become the best version of yourself. So merging these traditional philosophies with modern day psychology, with this being that's very loving, love people, very unconditionally loving. I have a very big heart. I have a lot of patience for people. And I'm realizing now that that's my gift, right? And that's the way that I can give back to the world. And that being a chief of staff is good, and it's a good opportunity. It's very powerful, but I'm getting more excited to shift my focus and my contributions in my communities and the groups that I work with more towards this human centric work. More towards education, more towards public speaking, more towards working with the youth, more towards bringing some of these very powerful ideologies to the light and sharing that and writing more and just owning my superpowers more. So as that ties into the diplomacy work that I'm doing, I'm teaching Mexican people, government officials about these crazy Chinese concepts all the time, always teaching people about psychological biases and, understanding their family roots and helping them understand their attachment styles and sort of how they relate to other people. Just tapping more into that knowledge that I've been cultivating and fostering professionally and educationally and personally, and finding out how to leverage that value for my community and my boss and the people that I work with and sharing that more. And ultimately, one day, Wei Xing calls me his feng shui advisor, which in like ancient Chinese times is actually like a very honorable position. And I think that that's going to be an avenue for me for more people than just my immediate environment right now. I think that I can build a platform and build a channel to share this with the world. So getting ready to do that and doing that more and more as each day goes on, and super excited to share that with the world.
I love that. I'm so excited for you. I'm so happy for you. Like you and I are both super connectors. And I'm glad that we got to hang out in Medellin last year and just catch up a little bit. But just to see that you're living this fulfilling life where your work is allows you to combine all the things that you're passionate about, helping people, making meaningful change, bridge across different worlds, and also educate people as you go is just such a beautiful thing. And not that many people get that dream job in their dream life. So I'm excited to see everything that you're going to be up to next.
Yeah, it's a big year. We're going into the year of the Yang Fire Horse.
Yes.
And when you look at astrology and Chinese astrology, and this is going to be a very bold, fast moving, high pace, high energy, a lot of fire. So it's a big year for movement and for change, and I think you're going to see that globally. 60 years ago was the last Yang Fire Horse year in 1966, and that was when there was like a lot of cultural revolution happening across the world. Female women's rights movements were happening. I think was established in that year. So to the audience here listening, I would say, get ready for a very big and transformative year for the society and for yourself, and just go after what you want. And this is going to be a year of that for me. So I'm super excited to jump into it. And I know that we have so much more to do together. So thank you so much for having me.
Incredible. Thanks so much for joining me. Super excited. We're definitely going to have to do this again and catch up and see what you've accomplished in the next 3, 6 months. And can't wait to visit you in Cabo, I'm sure, and work together on some things. But thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. I'm looking forward to seeing everything you create as well. So let's keep in touch, and to the next time.
It's good. And for everyone else, tune into the next episode of the Breakthrough Blueprint.
Awesome.